Well, let's talk a bit about resources, advancement, development. John Hillis is here, our Director of Vice President for Development, and he's put some figures down. John, do you want to just run over those briefly?
Sure.
Thanks, President Henry. First of all, before I talk about numbers, I think one of the important things that's happened at OCU is addition of some key new members to the advancement team. We've had a number of positions that had not been filled in some key areas such as annual giving with Mandy Heaps, who's now our director there, and OCU grad. So in addition to combining professional expertise, she has tremendous passion and love for alma mater, so we're very honored and excited to have Mandy back. Carrie Prong, who many of you probably know, who's a dual OCU grad. We had not had any professionals in alumni relations for several years, and that's a key part of an overall advancement model, that if you ultimately don't have engagement and involvement, it's not very realistic that you're going to have philanthropic support. And so I believe Carrie's back there in the back center section, and so Carrie's also a former president of the OCU Alumni Association, so he brings some important perspective as a volunteer in that capacity in coming and taking over that program, and is already doing an excellent job. In addition, we have Jessie Pingle, who's working with Carrie and Mandy in annual giving. She's a recent OCU graduate, and very excited to have Jessie's enthusiasm. She's keeping the office young. And we also have Paige Gregory, who's our Director of Special Events, and has really filled an important role with a number of events and activities that happen at the university, and certainly with the things that President Henry's doing. It's essential that we have capable staff in supporting him and being able to host those events appropriately as we go throughout the year. As we completed the calendar year, we count on a fiscal year basis, so July 1 through June 30 through 12/31, the first 6 months of the year. We're very pleased that our gift totals are a little over $6.4 million. That's an increase of almost $1 million at this point a year ago, and that represents a 17.5% increase. And so with some of the challenges that you're seeing in philanthropy across the country, not only in higher education, but other charitable organizations that are out actively raising money, which compete for that total philanthropic dollar, we're pleased and proud to be in that position, and we're up, and we cross our fingers and keep working hard and applying fundamentally sound principles as we continue to move through the fiscal year and pushing to June 30. A key element of that, which certainly Mandy Heaps has been very helpful as we move forward, is with our annual giving program and having a more strategic approach and being more actively engaged in direct mail and other aspects that comprise university annual giving program. Is our totals through through December 31 are $294,000, and that has us up almost $30,000 from where we were a year ago. And our gift counts are high, and number of alums starting to give back has been very encouraging. And I know under Mandy's continued direction, we will continue to make inroads there. Also celebrating Campus Campaign, which is your all's generous support back to the university, is we had a 9.3% increase in total gifts to Campus Campaign last year, and we'll be kicking off this year's campaign the latter part of this month, and so I know Mandy and the rest of the advancement office are excited about kicking that off this year. And again, we certainly appreciate all your support as faculty, staff members to the institution. Pardon me for the flip of the page. But a couple of things I think are important to share as far as gifts of note and I think they're important because they're OCU alums that are giving back in a very meaningful way. But Paul McLaughlin, who's a dual OCU alum, both business and law, and actually ironically came to OCU from Jefferson City, Missouri as a result of OCU's music prowess, and then decided he wanted to be an accountant ultimately and ultimately a lawyer instead. But he gave $70,000 a year in for expendable scholarships, and $50,000 of that was for the law school, $20,000 of that was for the accounting program, the Minor School of Business. And the reason that is so important is, one, there's no bigger need at the university than scholarship support, but $70,000 in expendable money, it would take a $1.4 million endowed fund to generate that amount of money. And Paul's developed a wonderful relationship with OCU over the last several years, and so the previous year he gave $60,000 in a similar fashion. So just in 2 years, he's made a $130,000 impact with OCU, and so we look forward to having more Paul McLaughlin's in the world and continuing to give back. Phil and Kathy Busey, another couple that are OCU alums, make $35,000 in gifts a year in support of Dean Agee's programs and binders. Again, most of that was emphasized on scholarship support, which I know is very important to Dean Agee in the business program. One of our trustees and very important figure at OCU, Linda Petrie-Lambert, gave $25,000 to augment the existing Petrie-Lambert Scholarship Fund. So again, we're seeing some nice support in scholarship dollars at OCU. Recognize one of our athletic alums who's been very generous to the baseball program, Freddie Sanchez, current major leaguer, gave $75,000 for Coach Denny Craball's current baseball program, and so we're thrilled to see that. And to close, just would like to highlight an exciting development with mass communication and the work that the Advancement Office did with Matt Hamilton and his team is we made an application to the Ethics and Excellence in Journalism Foundation, which we had not had much activity with in a number of years, and we've successfully received a $50,000 gift from EEJF, and that's going to support an exciting new program in Mass Comm where they're going to be producing a 10-series television project that'll be paralleling the upcoming political year. And I know Matt and his team are very excited about that, and then the educational opportunity that is going to provide our students and the experience firsthand of both on the camera side, the production side, and the on-air side to be able to produce a television series, and that's also something that President Henry's going to be very involved in. So excited to see that collaboration with our office and with MassCom and identifying that opportunity with the EJF. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you very much.
Several of you wrote in and asked how you could help. Well, with development or resources. One way you can help is what we need are names. If you have names that you think John needs to get into our friend-making device, please get him those names. But any information you can provide, that would be helpful. We need our records aren't as good as we would like them to be. We're making them considerably better. But if you know someone that you think we can contact, please do that. And remember, if you're trying to raise significant gifts from individuals or foundations, please go through John first, because we need to coordinate these things. We frequently have proposals before foundations, and if the wrong proposal gets before them first, they may not fund anything. So it's really important that you use the resource of our advancement office. Did you have something?
I had one thing I wanted to also say is I see Dean Williamson out in the audience, and so one of the immediate capital projects we're going to be trying to complete is, as many of you know, we've had phenomenal growth in our nursing program, and the whole nursing team's done a great job with building that level of excellence, and I think that's indicative of the enrollment increase that you see. And that only continues, so we do need to try to complete that third floor to offer more educational space to be able to accommodate that not only short-term growth, but the anticipated future growth in the program. And so we will be working on a fundraising effort of approximately $2 million to complete the third floor. So we'll be working closely with Dean Williamson and the president and others. And maybe I can work on that lead naming gift from her son, who's to her left, to kick off that campaign. So Marcus, are you in? All right, I know I can count on you. Thank you.
The growth that we've had in nursing has just been wonderful, and it's been taxing on the staff that has to maintain everything and keep everything moving and going there, and the faculty as well. And so we're very pleased and proud of that growth, and it raises some new responsibilities for us. John and I met with the Mabee Foundation and the Chapman Foundation last week, and the Mabee Foundation is interested in, they invited us to submit a grant to them. These foundations are a little tricky to work with. They have multiple requirements. That's all right. It's their money. They get to be that way. But we have to have 40% of the money raised, and we have to raise the rest of the money within a year in order to get 20% of the project from them. So if we're a $2 million project, then we'd have to have $8 million raised in order to get $4 million from them, and then we'd have to finish up the other $8 million in a year. So it requires some synchronizing of our watches to do those sorts of things. We've had initial pledge of $100,000 to this $2 million project from one of our finest trustees. We have some other asks out, and it's important for us to move. We're gonna do a little mini campaign that's going to raise some money, I hope, in several areas. But we're gonna be keying on nursing. Also, we have some donors that are interested in creating funds of about $100,000 that will be presidential professorships. That will allow that, this is something we took from OU's playbook. This will allow the money from those to be presented to professors for a 3 to 5 year period. It's a way to get, in fact, the person I'm meeting with today has never made a gift of that size to the university, but he's contemplating a couple of those. And that's what he wants to do, and I think that's wonderful. So those are some things about fundraising. We closed out our last campaign, and 49% of you participated in that campaign. And that's great. It was about 17% at OU. And it's not that OU's our only competitor, but it's a big one. And, you know, I know times are not particularly easy, but it's wonderful that you have helped, and it helped at greater levels than last year. It helps us when as we try to raise money from others, to point out about our own giving and from our own campaigns. Retention, I think we've talked enough about that in the last year or so. We've had multiple committees and work, and we've tried to make that happen. It is important, you all know it. The work that I remember John Riesenberg a year and a half ago, pointing out how important to retention he thought it was that staff, non-faculty people were, and how he sometimes felt that students were not as appreciative as they should be. I thought that was really neat. And knowing John, you can understand that. I had some notes here which I didn't get here. Seeing Freddie Sanchez's gift remind me that I wanted to say, Jim Abbott, I appreciate another national championship.
My pleasure.
And not only that, of course, because of the national publicity a few months ago of our women's wrestling, I think they've assisted us with campus security as well. So you bash into somebody's car at your peril on this campus, particularly if they're a woman. So I hope some of you, yes.
It's okay to hit them, just don't run away after.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And I had the privilege of attending the Hall of Fame honor ceremonies for our athletics this year, and it was just a remarkable gathering here in this room. I got to sit by General James Wade and Bud Samant. Now, I love all things Indian. I have to confess, I lean a little bit on the Kyle side. I just love Kyles. And Bud Samant is the archetypical Kyle. And sitting by those two guys through that program was just absolutely outstanding. And Keith Lytle was honored appropriately so, a couple of our great athletes.
We wanted to know, could you please clarify for us, what are the plans, what are the questions being asked about our pension plans? There is some indication that we've heard that there's even an idea of perhaps no longer being TIAA-CREF, which is very, very, very concerning to those of us.
Where would that idea come from?
I don't know, you tell me.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You're the one raising it, because
what are the plans?
It's absolute news to me, but the person who knows is Mary Jenkins. But Phyllis, I heard a rumble of that, and I had no idea where something like that gets started.
Thanks, Phyllis. I'm Mary Jenkins, and I'm one of the newer additions here, and I am really pleased to be here. And it's really an honor to be at Oklahoma City University. I started out life wanting to be a student here, and I ended up at OBU, so I finally made it here. Made my way home, yeah.
She did graduate summa cum laude from
I
OBU.
did. I'm going to start with the simple answer, and then I'm going to get a little more complicated because the president told me it was okay to do some accounting ease. And then I'll come back to the simple answer. We are not contemplating, have never contemplated leaving TIAA-CREF as our retirement plan. I'll tell you the more complicated situation in a minute, but our plans remain the same. Your investment directions remain the same. The only thing I would like to do as things get better around here is go from the 5% match back up eventually. So that's the simple answer. No plan at all to move away from TIAA-CREF. I think the thing that happened that's complicated, that's made people wonder and has complicated this discussion, is that I asked Darwina to put an item on the benefits committee agenda for next week to talk about our retirement plans in terms of there being church plans. And I think that caused some consternation that we were looking at joining the United Methodist plan, but that's not the case. We've had retirement plans at OCU since 1964. That was round about the time you came here, right, Darwina? Yeah. And
That was when she was born.
when she was born. That is about when she was born. And if you've been in the private sector, you know that defined contribution plans are 401ks. And the regulation of 401ks has been very precise and very, very well defined for a long, long time. 403Bs, which are the nonprofit equivalent of 401ks, a defined contribution plan, the regulation has not been at all defined or specific. And in fact, most nonprofits have not had real, actual plan documents until the last couple of years. Hard to believe, but that's the truth. The Internal Revenue Service decided a few years ago to require plan documents for nonprofits who had 403Bs as of the 1st of January 2009, and there was such consternation in the nonprofit community that decision was put off for a year. So after I retired the first time from a lifetime at AT&T, I was the executive director of the Oklahoma City Public Schools Foundation. I was the plan administrator, and we had no plan document until the 2009 timeframe, which kind of concerned me. OCU had a good retirement plan, has always had a good retirement plan, but mainly because we had a really, really, really good plan manager, TIAA-CREF. And through that, I think we've provided an excellent defined contribution retirement plan. We were a little ahead of the curve. As of 1/1 of 2009, we adopted a plan document. I've got props with me. This was the plan document that we adopted in 2009, and it was a straight, right out of the box, right off the shelf, ERISA, if you know ERISA. It was a plan document under ERISA. For the first time in the 2009 and 2010 plan years, calendar years, because of our adoption of this particular plan document, we were required to do external financial statement audits as part of filing some paperwork with the Department of Labor. So we've done that the last couple of years, and for this amount of paper, audits and the forms that we file with the Department of Labor, over the last couple of years, we've paid $40,000 a year for this each year. And I really don't think lawyer jokes are very funny. I've never thought they were very funny. But there are a lot of jokes about how lawyers get paid by the word. But I'll tell you, I think I might want to be an accountant based on 40,000. Anyway, at a meeting that Darwina and I were at this fall, our insurance consortium, which caters to religiously affiliated schools, they said you probably, when you adopted your plan to be compliant with the new 403B regulations of the IRS, you probably adopted an off-the-shelf ERISA plan. And we're like, yeah, we did. And you now have had to do audits for a couple of years, and they're really expensive. Yeah, we have. So they said what you ought to have done, and you can still do it, is adopt TIAA-CREF's church plan. It's a specimen 403B plan for affiliated church organizations, basic plan document. Same operation under TIAA-CREF of retirement as we've always done, but we would be categorized as a church plan, not an ERISA plan. And that would make the two things that we would not have to do as a church plan, and we actually are a church plan because we are a church-affiliated organization. Unless we make an irrevocable election with the Internal Revenue Service, we are a church plan. We're a church plan with our medical plan. We're a church plan with all of our plans. What this does is it makes the filing with the Department of Labor unnecessary, and it makes the financial statement audit optional at least. And I think we ought to focus on that word. We could still do any audits that we want to do, but we are not required to do them because we're a church plan. Let me see if I want to say anything else about that.
There is internal audits that we do.
We do, Darwin is pointing out that we do internal audits. I do want to say a word about what an external audit, a financial plan audit is, because I got some emails that suggested some things that might be good for us to be looking at. A financial statement audit looks at financial statements just like what it says, and it determines whether the financial statements fairly represent the business of the enterprise according to generally accepted accounting principles, and that there's no material misrepresentation. So they really just look at the financial statements. There was some suggestion that we really do need to be auditing, because we need to see whether our own transactions with TIAA-CREF are arriving there. That's not what this kind of audit looks like. This is not what the financial statement audit looks for. There's some suggestion that we need to be auditing whether TIAA-CREF is doing the best management job with our money. That's not what an external audit looks for. An internal audit, the kind we do and the kind we'll be continuing, I think our internal processes are actually going to be beefed up. That's the kind of thing we need to be doing. And I'm actually, I will take offline the discussion of whether we should continue to spend $40,000 to get the external audit. I think you should look at this before you really think that you should. I would bet you 100% that I'm probably the only one on campus that read this year, and I did it because I had to sign the management representation letter. Well, I did it because I'm an accounting and tax nerd, but I also did it because I had to sign the letter. I think probably about 4 of us on campus probably knew that for the last 2 years, for the first time in our history, we've gotten one of these. Anyway, I think I've beaten the dead horse and that a lot. And there may be some questions you'd like to ask me. I'd like to turn it back over to the president. If they are questions we could do offline. But I want to go back to the simple thing that I started out with. Our TIAA-CREF plans are going to operate the way they've always operated. We are a church plan. By adopting under the correct document, we will have the flexibility to do the kind of audits that we feel that we should do, and we won't have, a church plan just simply doesn't have the government regulatory requirements that other non-church related entities have to comply with. So I think that's a really, really complicated answer, but I think that's it.
Well, so won't the committee meet next week?
The committee will meet next week. I know two other things I want to say. I know I caused this consternation because I put an item out there on the agenda. I thought it was something important for the committee to know. There were just a couple items about it, but I should have supplied an explanation with it, and I sincerely apologize for that. But something I'd like to say is I'm really, 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 really available to answer questions, and I'm not threatened by questions, and I make house calls. I'll come to your meeting, I'll come to your office. I think Professor McDougall would, are you here, Vicki? Anyway, I think she would certify that I've come to her office a number of times, and we've discussed a lot of benefits. I love to go around the campus. I love to get out of the administration building, and anyway, I apologize
We're kind of glad for you to go, actually.
I apologize for the confusion, and I just hope you'll ask me any questions in the future. Hope that was helpful. Are there any questions, though, that I might need to take in this setting?
Well, I understand it better now, but please you don't need to wait for a town meeting. Call our HR people if you have a question. And, you know, I understand how important retirement is, and we want to be careful. We want to be careful with it. But I think, you know, I think the committee will discuss it. I just assume forego the $40,000 expense if we can. But that's something that the committee will discuss. I presume would make a recommendation. Well, I think you'll find that you know, Mary's running a pretty tight ship there. She's got some great people who have labored in the vineyard for a long time and know the system through and through. And there are, you know, I tried to avoid ERISA wherever I could in law school, and I don't even remember what it stands for. Employment Related Insurance Security Act. How about that?
Income security.
Income Security Act. Okay. So the most boring briefs that have ever been written in law have been briefs written about.
I think they're fascinating.
Yeah. That's why we're glad for her to leave the administration building.